Today, on a very special episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to dive into the thing. If you've been online, you know the thing. We're going to dive into it, talk a little bit about it, hopefully not tick anyone off. Plus other news and notes for the Orlando Magic because it's the dead part of this offseason and we don't have much else to talk about. Let's get to it today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is August 2nd. 2023. My name is Philip Rossman. I'm the expert insight editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you download podcast. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to talk about a bit of news that broke that does not have anything to do with basketball and touches a lot of nerves in a lot of places. Just got to kind of go over what the facts are, what we know, and a little bit of the reaction that we saw online to it. We'll talk about some injury updates from around the roster, as well as a trade rumor that never was. That's fun. We're going to clean up the notebook a little bit here on today's episode of Locked On Magic. Before we do that, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter, remember, there's great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off here. If you were online at any point on Tuesday, this bit of news was, maybe it isn't actually shocking, but it felt odd. And you know, I was talking about it both with people online and you know, again, maybe the discourse got a little out of hand there. I was talking to other basketball people, other like-minded basketball people, and we were a bit confused by it as well. And it's newsworthy in that it is something unique. It is not that it is surprising. It is not that it is illegal or wrong or necessarily worth criticizing, but it is now a talking point. It is something that happens. So if you don't know, if you're not terminally online, congratulations for having a healthy relationship with people. But it came out, Jason Garcia, who runs Substack, one of the best political reporters in the state, reported, and it was later confirmed. I checked, someone sent me the FEC form itself. It was confirmed that the Orlando Magic as an organization has donated $50,000 to Ron DeSantis's to a super PAC, associated with Ron DeSantis's presidential campaign. Again, if I don't want to get too deep into campaign finance law, a super PAC is not, the reason it is a super PAC is that it is not directed by the candidate himself, but it is closely aligned with him. And obviously it took a lot of people by surprise. And, you know, I don't want to get into the politics of it because the Orlando Magic as an organization have every right to use their money and thus their speech, which is another debate to have, but they're allowed to donate to whatever causes they want to donate to. They donate to the Zebra Coalition. That is part of their big give every year. Zebra Coalition is a great organization here in Orlando that provides a safe space for LGBTQ youth in the community. The Zebra Coalition is one of the best organizations in this city. The Magic donate to them too. And so I don't know how much you want to read into it or not. It is definitely just divisive. And that's probably the part that I think a lot of us don't understand. It is not clear whether this is the case or not. Some people did look into it. There are some people claiming that this is the first instance, at least, of an NBA team, at least, or of a professional team donating directly to a presidential campaign in this way. It's odd for that reason. And again, the Magic have every right to make donations where they want to make them. We all know what the DeVos family's politics are. They are extremely conservative. It's not just that Betsy DeVos was the head of the Secretary of Education in the Trump administration. The DeVos family is extremely conservative. They are big players in the Michigan Republican Party. They are not as big in Florida, but we know what they're about. They are like one of the big projects that they've had in Michigan, at least, and I think they've tried to do it in Florida, is to try and direct public education money to religious schools. And you may be for that. As a Jew, I am very much against that. I'm very much against all injection of religion into public life, into government life. But you may be for that, and that's fine. I'm not here to argue for or against Ron DeSantis. I think you could probably tell where I stand on him and his job as governor. I'm not here to debate that. This isn't the proper venue for it. We're a basketball show. But this is something that is happening. And it is at least important to reckon and recognize this, that, these organizations do have speech rights. And I'm not here to say that they shouldn't have that. But I think this feels very incongruous with what the NBA appears to stand for. And again, we know that the NBA is a largely progressive league. They promote a lot of progressive causes. They were, with the players kind of leading the way, they were very vocal about the Black Lives Matter movement. They're still vocal on a lot of social justice issues. The NBA has always been on the forefront of social justice issues, whether it's Bill Russell, whether it was Oscar Robertson. The NBA has always been at the forefront. The NBA is honestly at its best when it is, because, as I mentioned way back when during the pandemic, as a white teenager, the NBA was my introduction to Black culture, and they are very prominent young Black men and young Black leaders in our communities and in the public sphere. The NBA, it is to the NBA's benefit to listen to them and to let them lead and to promote them as young leaders. But all the owners are billionaires, and billionaires tend to vote Republican. I don't want to debate this. I disagree with the DeVos family's politics. I also can recognize very, very truthfully that the DeVos family has had a positive impact here in Central Florida through the Orlando Magic Youth Foundation, and through their stewardship of the Orlando Magic. The Magic have been a force for good in the city of Orlando. And I think that's ultimately why this feels disappointing. It's not that the Magic exercise their speech rights as a company. And again, we can debate whether companies should have those speech rights on another day. I do think it is weird that the NBA would allow teams to inject themselves financially into potentially political hot water like this. It feels very, very odd that this is something that a team is allowed to do under NBA bylaws, but so be it. They're allowed to do it, whatever. What feels disappointing is that it does feel like it is incongruous with what Orlando is about. Orange County was one of 4 counties in the state of Florida that voted against Ron DeSantis in the previous election, an election that DeSantis won in a landslide. I actually looked up the stats. Orange County, which is where Orlando sits, voted for Charlie Crist, who is a terrible candidate, 57-43, a 14-point spread. DeSantis won the state by 19 points. This is a very welcoming and inclusive community. And frankly, Ron DeSantis has been a very divisive figure in this state. And you may disagree with that, but undoubtedly, there's a lot of shouting going on in the state of Florida. And again, you may think it's a good thing. You may think it's a bad thing. It doesn't feel right that the Magic have injected themselves as an organization into this debate in some way. It doesn't feel right that I have to spend 10 minutes trying to be political, trying to both sides this thing when I feel very strongly one way or the other. And again, you could guess which way I do. I don't care. I don't really care about that. It's disappointing because there are going to be fans like me. They're going to be fans very much that believe the things that I believe. And more likely than not, here in Orlando, those fans exist. The DeVos family owning this team already is turning off a really important part of our community. And Orlando is a very welcoming place to the LGBTQ community. And while I think the Magic did the best they could to honor the victims of the Pulse shooting, and obviously it happened during the summer when the Magic were not in season, there's always going to be a little bit of skepticism about the Magic among a very key part of this city's identity. And so I have to ask the question, as a business decision, and again, there's probably some political horse trading going on here where, the Magic donated to DeSantis Super PAC. They showed their support for the governor's presidential campaign. And when the Magic need to go to Tallahassee and ask the governor for something, maybe he's more likely to do it. That's kind of a cynical way to run a state and a very poor way to run a state, but maybe that's reality. Maybe I'm being naive. But it's disappointing in that the Magic did not have to inject themselves into this. They did not have to stand, I suppose, in this way and subject themselves to something that's going to clearly turn off a good chunk of Orlando. Not everyone, obviously. And some people are just not going to care, and that's fine too. And again, Orlando, the Magic as an organization have every right to use their speech rights to do this. But it just doesn't sit right. And I think that it's bad business, number one. I think that this is just, and someone posited this to me, and I appreciate calling me out on this because I'll admit my bias on this a little bit, but I would feel pretty uncomfortable if the Magic donated to a Joe Biden super PAC, and maybe they did. Like Disney was well known to donate to both Republican and Democratic candidates to make sure they had a foot in both waters and favors on both sides of the aisle. Maybe that's what the Magic did. Maybe the Magic is secretly, not secretly because this is all public, maybe the Magic have donated to a Joe Biden super PAC. I doubt it because of, we know where the DeVos family stands on a lot of issues, but perhaps they did. If it doesn't sit right with you, that's completely understandable. And I think that's really the message that I want to get out today because I've been dancing around it now for 12 minutes. It's okay if this doesn't sit right with you. It's okay if you're totally fine with this. And sorry they had to sit through all this to get to the rest of my show. Or just skip the rest of the show. I don't really care. I got the view anyway. But it's okay if this doesn't sit right with you. And honestly, like part of being a Magic fan has been reconciling how good and beneficial the Orlando Magic have been to the city of Orlando and all the good things that they, and yes, the DeVos family have done for the Orlando community. And also trying to reconcile that with politics that a lot of people, not everyone obviously, but a lot of people vehemently disagree with and disagree with on a big front. And unfortunately, I think what it did as an organization here, whatever the case was, further complicates that and further makes it harder to just watch a basketball game. And at the end of the day, that's what the Magic's business should be. And again, it's one thing, and I want to make this point before I go on to the next topic here. It's one thing if it's a player. If it's one thing if it's an individual. I don't care that Rich DeVos, or not Rich DeVos, that the DeVos family donates to the cause. I do care, but I am perfectly fine with them donating to the causes that they donate. They have that right to do so. Nobody really complained about Jonathan Isaac standing in the bubble. And I kind of hate how he's kind of turned himself into this victim because he's not. Largely everyone in the NBA bubble supported him and supported his decision. They may not have agreed with his reasoning, but they supported his decision. I don't agree with a lot of the things Jonathan Isaac is doing politically right now. I certainly don't agree with a lot of things that his church appears to be teaching. But I'm really happy that he has a best-selling book. I am name dropped in it allegedly. Not allegedly. I know that I am. I'm very happy that he was able to tell his story in that book and find meaning in that. I am very happy about him launching this clothing line, and I wish him all the success, even if I disagree with the things underpinning it. I wish him all the success in that. It's fine. Wendell Carter is a huge mentor and a great presence in this community here, Atlanta, wherever he is. Wendell Carter is doing amazing things in the community, and so many other players on this Magic team. They may have political causes I disagree with. They may do things that I disagree with, but I respect them all as individuals. I think what this comes down to is I am uneasy, and I think it's okay to feel uneasy with the team doing something that is, frankly, by definition, divisive. Donating to a presidential campaign is by definition divisive. You're turning off people, and especially with, both sides of the aisle are frankly arguing. And again, I would argue that one side has a stronger argument than the other, but both sides of the aisle arguing that America's on the brink of destruction, only they can save it. And that's total war. And so by the Magic injecting themselves into this debate, they've turned off a lot of people. And to me, that's not healthy for an organization. And that's not healthy for a franchise. And well, again, they have every right to make this speech, to make these donations. Apparently they have these rights. Maybe the NBA is going to draft a rule saying, hey, don't do that. This is a bad look for us. Don't care the candidate, don't care the cause. Avoid political contributions straight from the team. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't sit right, and it's okay to be uncomfortable with it. That's all I'm gonna say about it. Hopefully that is the end of it. The election is, next November. There's actually municipal elections, I believe, in Orlando in November. So I'll take this time to remind you all to register to vote if you haven't done so. If you're looking to get a mail-in ballot, make sure you check with your supervisor of elections office to make sure you're squared away on your mail-in ballot. I had my, in Florida now, you have to renew your mail-in ballot every 2 years, I think, every 2 or 4 years. I had to renew my request this time around. We have municipal elections here in Orlando, I believe, in November. And so stay informed, make sure you're registered to vote and exercise your speech rights as well. We will transition away from serious stuff, talk about some funner stuff. I got some injury updates that I want to share, and a trade rumor that never was. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, say a quick word from our friends over at Ibotta, or Ibotta. I don't know if it's Ibotta or Ibotta. I think it's Ibotta, because I like to buy a lot of things. I bought a lot of things, and I want to get cash back on those things. So whether I'm picking up burgers and hot dogs for the summer barbecue, or going or replenishing my summer closet because those jeans just don't work in the summer. Trust me, went to Universal last week, wore jeans, huge mistake. Hopefully I lost some weight doing that. I don't know. But Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Either link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop and get your cash back. It's that easy. The average Ibotta user earns $120 per year that could have covered the cost of an entire shopping trip, or you could use your cash back to buy that flight you've been dying to go to, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, you get real cash back that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. You can earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too when you start with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta using the code LOCKED when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code LOCKED. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA, in the Google Play or App Store, and use the code LOCKED. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us. We truly appreciate you. Long episode today. Today's kind of a throwaway episode. I shouldn't say that. Listen to the whole episode. There's stuff in here. But tomorrow on our next episode of Locked On Magic, it'll probably be tomorrow. We'll see. We'll talk about Orlando City beating Messi and Inter Miami. Yeah, I'm saying it. Take that inner Fort Lauderdale. We'll talk a little bit about that, but we'll talk about how the Magic play better basketball. That's kind of been the message going forward, and message that this team has been receiving. We'll talk about what's actually entailed in playing better basketball. We'll get to that on our next episode of Locked On Magic. But I want to take this time to kind of reset the injury front. Because one way the Magic are going to play better basketball next year is they're not going to be as injured. Their key players aren't going to miss as much time. They won't be down every point guard on their roster for 20 games. That would be nice. But there are a few kind of lingering injuries that have been hanging about. Since we are on the topic, Jonathan Isaac told Ryan Elijah, who I believe is a reporter for Fox 35 here in Orlando, that he does expect to be ready to play at the beginning of training camp. Isaac is currently unveiling his new clothing line. Again, I'm not going to get into why he has a clothing line. You can probably surmise why. You can look that up yourself. But Isaac does have a new clothing line. He does have a new signature shoe from a company that doesn't make make shoes for a lot of NBA players. We'll see from his clothing line. So we'll see how that works out. I'm a little worried about that myself, but Jonathan Isaac, obviously he ended the season with the injury that he had. Not a knee injury, but again with the hamstring injury. He says that he will be back and ready to play once the season begins, once training camp begins. And of course, that's obviously really good news. We're not going to be too upset about having Isaac back. He played 11 games last year after missing the last 2 seasons. Getting him back is a pretty big deal. We could see clearly how much of an impact he makes on the floor. And I think that he would be, he's kind of a necessity with this team. So they can always have that kind of sprawling length that this Magic team loves to have. Again, we still don't really know. I mean, Isaac was really impressive, in my opinion, in the 11 games that he did play, considering all the time that he missed. But we still don't really know how good Jonathan Isaac can be quite yet. Obviously, we just have to see him play. The goal is still just get him out there, get him playing, and then we can build on things from there. Then we can start experimenting with some of these lineups. So having him in training camp is a huge deal. If he is ready for training camp, if he's able to participate fully in training camp, that is a huge deal because that sets him up for a really big season and for a season where he can contribute fully. Again, one of the things I disliked about this Magic offseason is the Magic did not meaningfully address that forward position. Right now, Paolo, Banchero, Franz Wagner, and probably Joe Ingles are holding down that 4 spot if Jonathan Isaac has to miss any significant time. I don't think Orlando wants to go big. I don't think they go with a 2-big lineup with Wendell Carter and Mo Wagner, or Goga Bitadze. But that's certainly an option as well. I think the Magic are leaning on Jonathan Isaac a little bit more than they probably should, and that's a gamble in my opinion. Now, granted, throwing out a lot of money on a guy that you may not play if Isaac's healthy, that's probably not smart management. But I do see that as a potential weakness in this team. And again, depth is going to be a huge factor for the Magic as they try to take that next step up. Also of note, this little injury note kind of slipped through the cracks a little bit. Was not reported at the time, but Anthony Black released a vlog, or his first vlog from NBA Summer League. It's very much kind of the scattershot, musings of a 19-year-old. But he did say, while he's in the barber's chair, he did say that the Magic knew that he was having a little bit of an ankle issue, and so they weren't super concerned with how he played in Summer League. And this was said before his first game against Detroit Pistons, obviously his best game of the Summer League run. Again, it wasn't enough to keep him out of Summer League. They still felt comfortable throwing him out there, saying, hey, just go out there, get the experience. And look, if you watch Anthony Black play during Summer League, he looked really good. He played really well. He was able to control the tempo of the game. He was able to get kind of to his spots. He was able to kind of drive in the lane. And I think we all kind of remarked, or at least I remarked, and a few people agree with me, at least on this remark, that it just felt like he lacked explosiveness getting to the basket. It felt like he was always just kind of waiting a beat too long to try and get others involved. It just really didn't look like he was kind of playing at the full speed that we know that we think he can play at. Now, he still defended at an extremely high level. He still scored plenty. He still had some impactful moments that definitely felt, it definitely kind of felt like he was a bit off, or you hope that he was a bit off, because if that's how he is, then, maybe he's not as good as we think he's going to be. At the end of the day, it's Summer League. I'm not super concerned. It doesn't seem like it's a big injury. He's going to be ready, it seems like, for training camp. So that kind of slipped through the cracks. And finally, just before we move on to our final segment here, international basketball is getting ready to start. We know that Paolo Banchero will now wear number 8 for the U.S. national team. So P8 in the house. And Goga Bitadze and Georgia have started doing a couple of their pre-World Cup friendlies. Georgia lost to Egypt on Sunday. They lost to Lithuania and Jonas Valanciunas on Tuesday. Stats are kind of hard to come by. I could not find stats for the Georgia-Egypt game. But Tadze did sit out Tuesday's game. Not exactly clear why, but he did sit out Tuesday's game against Lithuania. If you go to the Republic of Georgia Basketball Federation's Instagram page, you can see that he is very clearly in a polo and not in a jersey for the game. Georgia's, I think, got another game. I think they play Latvia next. And obviously Team USA starts their training camp on Thursday. We will see Team USA play Puerto Rico on Monday. We're going to cover that game in full on Tuesday's episode, on next Tuesday's episode of Locked On Magic. When we come back, which won't be very long, we'll talk about a trade rumor that never was. And again, just remind you what to think when rumors pop out. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. We're undoubtedly kind of in silly season in the NBA. I'm stretching these topics as far as I can here. And like I said, I'm planning to have a couple special episodes here in the next couple weeks. I am planning as well to, I'm also planning next week to be on vacation. So I'll definitely have an episode Monday, Tuesday, probably also Wednesday. And then I'm off the rest of the week. I'll remind you all that later, but we're going to kind of start scaling back a little bit when it makes sense to. Today doesn't make sense to. I had something to talk about today, although obviously not something substantial. Maybe it is substantial. I don't know. We're going to find out how that story develops in there. But we are kind of in the silly season. And, I get the Google alerts. I have Orlando Magic set up as a Google alert. If people still use Google alerts, I still use Google alerts. Helps me find stuff. But I see all these articles and all these posts from some of the other blogs and Bleacher Report and all those, like saying this trade lands Jalen Suggs with the Raptors or whatever the case may be. And I know not to click on these because they're just fan speculation. And right now is the time for fan speculation. If you have a fake trade you want to pitch me your fake trades. I'll do a fake trade. If I get enough fake trades, if you guys pitch me enough fake trades, I will do a fake trade show. I will break down your fake trades and tell you why they're not going to happen. That's the truth. But you see a lot of these rumors pop up. And there's one rumor that at least had the backing of legitimate reporting and has been quickly shot down just as fast. There's a rumor that came out maybe a couple weeks ago now saying, I think it was from Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype, and he does great work. And again, like I'll say this every time when there's a legitimate report of a legitimate rumor, I never doubt that the rumor is what that reporter was told. I trust reporters. I know the game of reporting. I always trust that reporters come to things with information that they have heard, that they have had. Whether that is true, what you have to determine as a reader is how much stock do you put into what was said. Why is this being said? Why is this being reported? Yada, 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 yada. And so I believe it was Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype reported that the Magic were among the teams monitoring the Pascal Siakam situation. And, for a little while in late July and mid-July, late July, Pascal Siakam was the hottest trade name on the market. The Damian Lillard talks have kind of stalled. A lot of teams are looking for, the Blazers and Heat appeared to be looking for a third team to drag into those negotiations. Teams that maybe struck out in free agency started thinking, okay, how do we shore up the things that we need? The Hawks became a very favorite target for Pascal Siakam. All the while, Pascal Siakam never stated or never seemed to hint that he wanted out of Toronto. It just felt like Toronto was starting to kind of reconfigure themselves after losing Fred VanVleet. But monitoring felt like a very strange word. It never seemed like anything was imminent. It never seemed like the Magic were actually interested. It just seemed like they were kind of keeping tabs on things because Siakam is exactly the kind of player that the Magic would like. Well, let's put a kibosh on that pretty immediately. Mark Stein posted on his Substack that the Magic were downplayed as a potential suitor almost as soon as the rumor sprang up. Someone asked him in a chat on a Substack, And Mark Stein said, I asked about this pretty soon after it happened, and everyone I talked to said, yeah, that's not how it's going. And look, that makes sense. That part makes sense because the Magic obviously are set at forward. They got Franz Wagner, they got Paolo Banchero. Running a 3 forward lineup like that with Pascal Siakam in center, it's not that it couldn't work. I don't think it would. I think you get beat in the playoffs with something like that. It's experimental. It's fun. It's not a terrible idea, but not something that'll last long term. And so for the Magic to make that their all-in move doesn't feel like the right call. Doesn't feel like the right thing. But this is the bigger point that I think comes out of this. And again, like I'm very big on when I see a rumor, why does this rumor exist? Who benefits from this rumor? Who benefits from putting this out in the public? What relationships do we know that the reporter has? Who I don't mean to, I want to say this as nice as I can. What agendas does that reporter serve? That's the game. That's part of the game. And being an informed news reader, being someone who's an informed reader thinks about these things. Like, look, I know my role. I am not a reporter. I'm not a newsbreaker. I suspect a lot of people look at me and kind of understand that, yeah, I cop for the team a little bit. I'm a little, I'm very patient. I'm not a hot take guy. I'm not any of that. So when I saw this rumor and I saw how this kind of played out, and again, petered out as a trade rumor that never was over here. But when I saw this, I thought back to what we saw back at the trade deadline. And I think ultimately, as the Magic continue to kind of spin their cap room forward and not use their cap room, we're going to continue to see the Magic pop up kind of randomly in some of these rumors. And some of that is, to Magic fans' chagrin, a lot of people considering the Magic as still kind of this directionless team and not really knowing what they want. So they just get them a star, get them a team that makes the playoffs, make them happy. That's part of it. But I think ultimately what everyone understands is the Magic are a team that has a lot of cap room and a lot of resources to get things done. When I saw this Pascal Siakam rumor pop up, I thought, okay, I don't think the Magic are interested in Pascal Siakam. I think somebody, don't know who, I think somebody probably put the Magic's name out there to say like, hey, this is a team that has a lot of money, a lot of resources, a lot of money available, and a lot of resources to make things happen. When I see a rumor like this, and again, we know the Magic don't leak anything internally, so not likely coming from the Magic, and the move that the Magic ultimately make is probably going to catch us all by surprise. So when I see something like this, it tells me that a lot of teams view the Magic as the next team to make a big move. It tells me that everyone kind of thinks that the Magic are ready to push some chips in, to use some of these assets to make something happen, or that they're a team capable of doing that they're a team capable of putting together the package to get Pascal Siakam out of Toronto. And so I take that as a compliment if I'm the Magic. Or again, I don't think the Magic actually care about any of this stuff, but as a Magic fan, take that as a compliment. That the Magic are a team that's kind of hovering in the background. Like I said back at the trade deadline, the Magic are the boogeyman. The Magic are the team every other team is going to threaten to say like, hey, you don't get a deal done with us, you don't up your offer. The Magic can offer XYZ and AABB. So you got to pump yourself up here to beat them. And we're talking with them. Once I hang up with you, I'm calling Jeff to say like, hey, this is what they offer. Can you beat that? That's kind of how I think other teams are using the Magic right now. And eventually, one of these rumors is going to be true. Eventually, the Magic are going to push those chips in and are going to make that big offer and are going to take that all-important next step. We don't know when that is, obviously, but it is going to happen, and it could happen very, very soon. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Hamley, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of the Holy Citadel podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device for the latest on the Orlando Magic. Be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow us on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. Special announcement for Orlando Magic Daily fans and followers. This month in August, we are doing our celebration of the Orlando Magic's 35th anniversary. We're going to do some of those episodes and some of those discussions here on Locked On Magic as well as on my Patreon page, Orlando Magic Hub. But I want to invite you all to submit your ballots. The anchor of our celebration of the 35th anniversary is our ranking of the top 35 players in Orlando Magic history. And we're going to start that by taking a vote. The entire staff at Orlando Magic Daily, plus some independent measures, plus some independent statistical measures, are all being combined into a giant poll. I do a vote every year. But we are doing a giant vote of the best players in Orlando Magic history, and I need fan submissions. I need your vote as fans to help us out. You can check out the survey. It is available on Orlando Magic Daily in the introduction post. I'll put the link in the show description below as well. Give us your at least top 10, but up to your top 20 players in Orlando Magic history. We're going to take those results. We're going to combine them all into a final list and hopefully be a definitive list of the top 35 players in Orlando Magic history. That we're going to be doing that all throughout until the beginning of the season, until the beginning of training camp. Very, very excited about this project. Voting closes August 8th in 1 week, or that's when I'm going to close voting. So definitely check it. Definitely submit your poll. If you can't find the link, give me your list and I'll add them in. But definitely use the poll. Much easier for me to keep track of things. But definitely check that out. Really, really appreciate you all, and we're gonna have a fun time celebrating the Orlando Magic's 35th anniversary this season. But that's gonna do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. For Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.